In our third and last topic of our today's lecture, third part of our today's lecture, हम cover करेंगे सैंड्रा बेम्स जेंडर स्कीमा थ्योरी कि किस तरह से हमारे एटीट्यूड्स एंड हमारे बिहेवियर्स शेप अप करते हैं हमारे जेंडर्ड बिहेवियर को. You will watch different videos क्योंकि इस टॉपिक को इन फर्दर ज़्यादा अच्छे तरीके से एक्सप्लेन करेंगे. So move towards the videos.
Gender schema theory was formally introduced by Sandra Bem in 1981 as a cognitive theory to explain how individuals become gendered in society, and how sex-linked characteristics are maintained and transmitted to other members of a culture. Gender-associated information is predominantly transmuted through society by way of schemata, or networks of information that allow for some information to be more easily assimilated than others. Bem argues that there are individual differences in the degree to which people hold these gender schemata. These differences are manifested via the degree to which individuals are sex-typed. Core gender identity is tied up in the sex typing that an individual undergoes. This typing can be heavily influenced by child rearing, media, school, and other forms of cultural transmission. Bem refers to 4 categories in which an individual may fall: sex-typed, cross-sex-typed, androgynous, and undifferentiated. Sex-typed individuals process and integrate information that is in line with their gender. Cross-sex-typed individuals process and integrate information that is in line with the opposite gender. Androgynous individuals process and integrate traits and information from both genders. Finally, undifferentiated individuals do not show efficient processing of sex-typed information. Being that gender schema theory is a theory of process and not content, this theory can
Dr. Sandra Bem received her PhD in developmental psychology from the University of Michigan in 1967. During her career, Dr. Bem taught and researched at Carnegie Mellon University, Stanford University, and Cornell University. Her research focused primarily on the social construction of gender and sexuality, childhood development, and psychological androgyny. In the 1970s, Bem began to question the cognitive development theories of Jean Piaget and Lawrence Kohlberg. She felt they neglected to answer why gender was so important to young children, especially in terms of their socialization. Bem wanted to know why children organize themselves based on their gender rather than other identifying characteristics, such as their race or religion. She argued that gender was not naturally more important to children and wanted to know what caused this behavior. So first of all, what is gender? Gender is the way that society categorizes and differentiates between male and female. From very early on, society, from parents to teachers to the media, began to influence a child's perception of what is boy and what is girl. Thus, a child can tell you what is stereotypically associated as being female or being male. Masculinity is usually associated with qualities like self-reliance, dominance, and strength, while femininity is usually associated with qualities like submissiveness, dependence, and emotionality. Remember, gender is a social construction. And now let's talk about what a schema is. A schema is a pattern or framework for categorizing and processing information. They allow for more efficient processing of incoming information by helping you recall or readily perceive associations that are schema consistent, while also ignoring what is not schema consistent. Bem's gender schema theory incorporates cognitive developmental theory and social learning theory to explain the way that children learn what it means to be a boy or a girl. The theory explains the process by which children learn to categorize information about gender and how they incorporate their self-concept into these gender-based categories. Gender schemas are developed in early childhood. Parents, school, and the media teach children the way gender is defined by society, including the anatomy, roles, and characteristics of the genders. This binary categorization system becomes their gender schema. They are able to process new information through this schema, and they associate girl with feminine things and boy with masculine things. When they develop the gender schema, they incorporate themselves into the schema. This is called a self-schema. They link themselves with the elements of the gender in which they feel they belong. This is how boys decide that they are going to do boy things and reject doing girl things, and vice versa. By acting in schema-consistent ways, they are rewarded by society, parents, and peers. This reinforces the schema and the behavior. Bem created her gender schema theory in 1981, following the development of the Bem sex role inventory, used to measure the extent to which a person subscribes to the stereotypical masculine and feminine characteristics. In the following slides, we will talk about Bem's sex role inventory, or BSRI. The purpose of BSRI is to determine how closely an individual reflects the culture's definition of maleness and femaleness in their own self-descriptions. The BSRI consists of 60 traits or characteristics, each of which are categorized as masculine, feminine, or neutral. Without knowledge of this gender categorization, BSRI participants are asked to rank each characteristic as descriptive of themselves, almost never, and 7, almost always. The BSRI does not consider gender to be binary and does not consist of only male and female. BSRI measurement results will indicate one of 4 possible classifications: masculine, feminine, androgynous, or undifferentiated. These classifications tell us more about an
जैसे अभी आपने पिछली वीडियो में भी देखा था, उसमें 4 टाइप्स की बात की गई थी. दिस सेक्शन ऑफ द वीडियो विल एक्सप्लेन टू यू कि वो जो 4 टाइप्स की बात हुई थी वो 4 टाइप्स क्या हैं और वो किस तरह से रिलेट करती हैं.
individual's sex typing. Sex typing determines how much a person has applied gender schema to him or herself. Bem argued that sex-typed individuals process information in gender-linked ways. For example, if a man scores high in masculinity and low in femininity, he would be identified as masculine by gender and therefore is sex-typed. Sex-typed individuals are more likely to regulate their personal behavior to meet the standards set forth by society. Sex-typed individuals demonstrate consistency between their sex and what society deems appropriate for their gender. A sex-typed man might show traits such as independence, aggression, or dominance. A sex-typed woman might show female traits such as sympathy, understanding, and affection. Both the sex-typed man and woman interpret gender to be an important way of defining their own attributes and behaviors. BSRI results show 3 other categories in terms of sex typing. All non-sex-typed individuals put significantly less importance on using gender as a way to define attributes or behaviors. A cross-sex-typed individual would be, for example, a woman who scores high in masculine and low in feminine according to BSRI. This woman would not reflect society's definition of feminine onto herself. She still considers herself to be female, however, the impact of gender schema on her attitudes about herself is much less substantial than the impact of the gender schema on a sex-typed group. A cross-sex-typed woman might view herself as a strong leader and competitor more so than a sex-typed woman would. Again, men can also be cross-sex-typed. A stay-at-home dad who's sympathetic, warm, and nurturing might be cross-sex-typed, but doesn't believe he's any less of a man than men who are sex-typed. It's important to keep in mind that being a cross-sex-typed individual has no effect on a person's sexuality. It's about the way in which they project gender schema onto themselves. The third classification is known as androgynous. This is when an individual, either man or woman, scores high in both masculinity and femininity. Again, this has no implications for the individual's sexuality. The example of the stay-at-home dad from before could be androgynous based on the attributes he possesses. Perhaps in addition to being a stay-at-home dad and raising the children, he's also very athletic and competitive, traits that are generally associated with the masculine gender. Additionally, a successful businesswoman who is strong and aggressive at work could also be warm and sensitive with her children and family. The sex type of these individuals, androgynous, just means that they do not engage in gender schematic processing as much as sex-typed individuals. Lastly, individuals who score low in both masculine and feminine are measured as undifferentiated. Undifferentiated individuals possess a gender, but they self-identify with neutral words in the BSRI more strongly than with either masculine or feminine words. Those neutral characteristics can be possessed by both men and women and consist of qualities like happy, friendly, conceited, or jealous. An undifferentiated person is also much less likely to use gender schema to regulate their own behavior and attributes. So in conclusion, today we talked about
So आपने देखा फोर डिफरेंट टाइप्स उनकी बेसिस पे किस तरह से जेंडर स्कीमास लोगों को हेल्प करते हैं या फिर नहीं करते। नाउ आपने देखा कि किस तरह से जो फर्स्ट टाइप है उसमें उस पर्सन में कंसिस्टेंसी होती है उसके अपने बिहेवियर्स में एंड इन द एक्सपेक्टेशंस ऑफ द सोसाइटी। सेकेंड टाइप में आपने देखा कि वो स्ट्रांग लीडर होते हैं और इट मीन्स के क्रॉस टाइप वाले जो लोग होते हैं वो अपनी जो जेंडर होती है उसके साथ आइडेंटिफाई भी करते हैं बट सोसाइटी की एक्सपेक्टेशंस के अगेंस्ट जाके भी बिहेव करते हैं। जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल एक फीमेल उसके लिए जिस तरह हमारी सोसाइटी एक्सपेक्ट करती है कि शी वुड बी नाइस पोलाइट और वो लीड नहीं कर सकती है बट अगर वो क्रॉस टाइप जेंडर स्कीमा के साथ है तो वो अपनी जेंडर के साथ आइडेंटिफाई करेगी बट एज अपोज टू सोसाइटीज एक्सपेक्टेशंस वो दूसरों को लीड भी कर सकती है। एंड्रोजिनस इज आवर थर्ड कैटेगरी जिसमें मैस्कुलिनिटी और फेमिनिटी वाली दोनों करेक्टरिस्टिक मौजूद होती हैं इन वन पर्सन। फॉर एग्जांपल अगर एक फीमेल है तो वो अच्छी लीडर भी हो सकती है उसके साथ वो अपने घर को भी अच्छे तरीके से लीड कर सकती है। अनडिफरेंशिएटेड कैटेगरी वाले वो तमाम लोग होते हैं जो न्यूट्रल होते हैं जेंडर स्कीमास को यूजुअली वो इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं करते हैं अपने ऊपर और न्यूट्रली बिहेव करते हैं। जेंडर स्कीमास उनके बिहेवियर्स को डिटरमिन नहीं करते या फिर उनके बिहेवियर्स को अफेक्ट नहीं करते। उसके बाद फाइनली हम एक लास्ट वीडियो देखेंगे। उस लास्ट वीडियो में आप देखेंगे कि स्कीमा की डिटेल डेफिनेशन और किस तरह से वो डेवलप होते हैं। So here it is.
Gender schema theory. So what is a schema? Well, a schema is an organised cluster of information. It can otherwise be referred to as a cognitive framework which helps us understand and interpret information. So what is a gender schema? So we have a range of different schemas. If I throw any word at you like school, picnic, a load of word and images will be related to those topics. And that's your schema for each of those particular areas. So when I say the words male and female, the words and images that come to mind and are triggered will be your gender schemas. So for male, you might think of muscles, aggression, beard, physical. Those sort of words will be your gender schema for male. And the same thing would apply for your gender schema for female. So gender schemas are basically everything we know in relation to gender and gender appropriate behaviours. And we start acquiring this information at the ages of 2 to 3. So in this gender identity stage, according to Martin et al. Martin was the person who came up with this theory. And they said that gender and starting to understand gender occurs a long time before Kohlberg's idea of gender constancy. And that's why these two cognitive theories conflict. Kohlberg says we understand gender fully by the age of 6. The gender schema theory says we start to develop it at the ages of 2 and 3 is early enough. And at that age of 2 or 3, they say children start to search the environment to understand their gender and develop their gender schemas. So in summary, children start to develop gender identity at the age of 3, far earlier than Kohlberg's theory. And this starts to kick off their process of gender development. So schemas are there really to direct people's behaviour and to allow children to understand a little bit more about themselves. So for young children, schemas are usually based around stereotypes. Boys play football and play with trucks, girls play with dolls and do ballet. And it's this understanding that allows a child to develop a deeper understanding of themselves. So I'm a boy, so I should play with trucks. I'm a boy, so I should be playing football. But by the age of 6, they have quite a fixed understanding of what is appropriate for each gender. And a key thing about this theory is that gender schemas are very, very resilient. And by that I mean children will disregard any information that does not fit in with their schema. So if they were shown an image of a female doctor, they might ignore that and they might say to the researcher, that picture was of a man. Because that's what they expect men to be doing. They expect men to be the doctors. So the resilience of gender schemas is really important for what children remember. The gender schema theory also talks about in-groups and out-groups. In-groups are the group that we identify with. So if you're you're going to identify
The concept of in-groups and out-groups is very important. Listen to it carefully.
with other girls. That's your in-group. And they positively evaluate this group. They look at them in a positive light. They want to be like other people in their in-group. And it provides that child with a template on how they should be behaving. So they want to behave the same way other girls are behaving, because they want to be part of that in-group. Our groups, on the other hand, are groups that we don't identify with. So if you're a girl, you don't identify with boys. Boys will be the out group. And they negatively evaluate that group. Whatever that group does, they view as a negative. They view it as bad. They view it as something that girls shouldn't be doing. And they want to avoid being part of that group. So if they see boys playing football, the girls won't play football because they negatively evaluate it, don't want to be associated with that particular behaviour, because that's what boys do. Help to develop children's schemas in a number of ways. The toys they
With this all, we have come to an end of our today's lecture. आज के लेक्चर में आपने इम्पॉर्टेंट डेफिनेशंस देखी सेक्स ट्रेट स्टीरियोटाइप्स की कैटेगरी में, उसके अलावा इम्पॉर्टेंट रिसर्चेस जो हुई हैं इस फील्ड में आपने वो रिसर्चेस देखी, उसके साथ साथ जेंडर एंड उससे रिलेटेड जो इम्पोर्टेंट डेफिनेशंस हैं आपने उन्हें देखा। देन उसके बाद जेंडर आइडियोलॉजीज, जेंडर स्कीमा थ्योरी को डिटेल में स्टडी किया हमने। उसके अलावा इससे रिलेटेड इम्पोर्टेंट डेफिनेशन से रिलेटेड डिफरेंट वीडियोस देखी आपने। और लास्टली जो हमारा इम्पोर्टेंट टॉपिक जो आज के लेक्चर में हमने कवर किया, दैट इंक्लूडेड मस्कुलिन एंड फेमिनिन कल्चर्स। इसमें आपने हॉफस्ट्रीट का एक लेक्चर भी देखा, किस तरह से उन्होंने डिफरेंट कल्चर्स को एक्सप्लेन किया। एंड उसके अलावा किस तरह से जेंडर स्कीमास डेवलप होते हैं, किस तरह से वो शेप अप होते हैं, किस तरह से वो आपके बिहेवियर को अफेक्ट करते हैं और कौन कौन सी टाइप्स होती हैं, ये तमाम चीज़ें भी हमने आज के लेक्चर में डिस्कस की। डिस्कशन ऑफ टुडेज लेक्चर इज, आज के लेक्चर में आपने क्या सीखा, व्हाट वाज डिफरेंट इन टुडेज लेक्चर, क्या नई चीज़ें आपको सीखने को मिली। एंड विद दैट मेक अ बॉक्स एट द एंड ऑफ योर नोटबुक। लेक्चर के एंड पे बनाइए एक बॉक्स में, उसमें लिखिए आपके आज के लेक्चर की क्या लर्निंग है। एंड देन उसको हम अपने आने वाले लेक्चर में डिस्कस करेंगे कि क्या आपको किस तरह से आज का लेक्चर हेल्पफुल रहा है इन योर डेली लाइफ। With that, take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.